Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Annette Mills, and on behalf of the steering committee of the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition, I'd like to welcome you to our annual meeting. Thank you so much for joining us. The mission of the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition is to promote an ecologically, socially, and economically healthy city and county. We focus on the future, envisioning the world that we would like to see, and take action toward that vision in the present. But living more sustainably also requires us to think holistically and long-term, not just looking forward to the future, but to recognize on whose ancestral lands we reside. And so we'd like to begin by acknowledging and honoring that we reside in Champanefu, the ancestral area of the Apanefu Kalapuya people, who have stewarded this land throughout hundreds of generations. Today, Kalapuya people are members of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians community of Oregon. Colonization has shaped the reality of everyone here today. We take this opportunity to acknowledge that fact and to express our desire to be part of the much needed process of learning about our ancestry and repairing relationships with Kalapuya people, Champanefu land, and Champanefu waters as an investment in the generations to come. Every year since 2008, we have held an annual meeting to celebrate the past year's accomplishments. In pre-pandemic times, we gathered in the main meeting room of the public library to enjoy each other's company and to partake of delicious snacks provided by our annual meeting sponsor, First Alternative Co-op. But since we're not able to do that again this year, the co-op has made a generous sponsorship donation. The first 150 people who registered and are attending today's gathering will be entered in a drawing for a $100 gift card to the co-op, and there will be 3 lucky winners. We'd like to express a huge thank you to First Alternative for your generous sponsorship. Before we begin our main program, I would like to introduce the coalition's leadership team. There are currently 10 individuals on our steering committee whose role it is to guide the organization, setting policy, developing strategy, and overseeing finances. Steering committee members also serve as liaisons to our 12 action teams and as members of our operating committees. In addition, we have a city council liaison who attends our monthly meetings and keeps us updated on council action. The Sustainability Coalition has 368 partner organizations. At this time in our annual meeting, we would typically go around the room and have representatives of our partner organizations introduce themselves. But since that's not possible, I'd like to say thank you to all of our partner organization representatives who are participating in today's event. Your presence matters. You serve as an important link to others in our community, and we're happy to support you through co-sponsorship of your events and projects, our monthly events calendar, where we announce your events, online resources like our Google Groups, Facebook, and website, as well as your inclusion in our annual community scrapbook. And now for our program. There are 4 parts to today's program. The bulk of our time will be focused on 2021 highlights from our action teams. Then we'll recognize our supporters and donors and tell you a little bit about what's planned for 2022, and finish by giving you plenty of time to ask questions. By now, I'm sure you're all very familiar with Zoom and have participated in many online meetings and webinars, but we'd like to offer a couple of tips for today's event. If you click on the view at the top right of your Zoom window and choose side-by-side gallery, you'll be able to see the slides as well as the speaker. If you have a question for one of our presenters, click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your Zoom window. Please do not put your questions in the chat. Put them in Q&A. After you've written your question, you just ready to hit enter. And now for our program. The Corvallis Sustainability Coalition is primarily a volunteer organization. In spite of all of the challenges of 2021, our hardworking volunteers have continued to move forward, and some have even initiated new projects. To guide their work, our action teams use community sustainability, a framework for action, a document that was developed with broad community input. Using this framework for action, our action teams have been working on dozens of different projects, and we'll be hearing about some of those projects now. Our first presentation is by Jeanette Hardison, who co-leads our Waste Prevention Action Team. Jeanette?
Good morning. Thanks, Annette. Yes, I'm Jeanette Hardison. I co-lead the Waste Prevention Action Team with Dawn Marie Gade. The vision of our action team is a waste-free community, fostering behaviors to reduce consumption of material goods. Our goals are to increase recycling, reduce landfill-bound trash, and increase proper hazardous waste disposal. To meet these goals, our team has developed and launched multiple projects. Next slide. And next slide. Prescription bottles are still not recyclable, but they are reusable. A partnership with Rice's Pharmacy for pill bottle reuse is still on hold due to COVID until the restrictions have been eased, but we do encourage folks to find other uses for this sturdy, ubiquitous waste. In the Recycling Block Captain program, Corvallis residents adopt one or more neighborhoods and distribute waste prevention information to them up to 3 times a year. Each block captain decides the size and geographical location to adopt, and where they might also share the information online. Handouts are provided in printed and digital formats and downloadable at the link below or on the Coalition website. In 2021, due to COVID, the program distributed 1 handout, this time created in collaboration with our team's No Food Left Behind program. The DIY Wasted Food Recovery Week flyer shown here was the first block captain handout to also be translated into Spanish. Thank you. It provides a tool to track wasted food for 1 week and see how much money you can save the next. This map shows current block captain neighborhoods. They're still unmarked areas. Are you our next neighborhood block captain? Let us know. Get in touch at the link below. Our Corvallis Albany Zero Waste group on Facebook continued to grow, now exceeding 780 members. Also in 2021, our Corvallis Area Reuse Directory continued in print, and we launched an interactive searchable online version. Most of you know that the printed directory is a matrix of reusable items, most often generated, matched up with local places that accept them for reuse. Here's a close-up. Next slide. If, for example, you have art supplies to donate, you can just scan across that row for the locations that are accepting those. Or if you know you're going to go to one of those drop-off locations in our reuse directory, you can look down the list and see what else they accept. Printed copies are still available in drop-off locations around town, and you can download a copy at the link below. The newer online version was also officially launched in 2021, and the online version, we call that Waste Prevention Directory because it goes beyond reuse. It also includes repair opportunities. Just click the Repair tab. Here are some of the past repair options, but we're currently updating the whole online directory. Please remember, always call ahead to the locations before you bring reusables because they change from time to time. And as always, we thank our generous printing sponsors and the funder of our online version, Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. Also funded by Oregon DEQ in 2021, our team's No Food Left Behind campaign continued teaching how and why to prevent wasted food at home. We employed many different techniques for outreach in person and online. Face-to-face outreach was sidelined, next slide, in 2020, but by June 2021, we were tabling again, safely providing our smart strategies to over 1,000 market visitors. We also distributed 180 pails to get inedible food scraps from kitchen to compost instead of from lunch to landfill. Pails are still available. Come see us at the Winter Farmers Market every other week, starting this coming Saturday. In 2021, we distributed over 4,500 printed smart strategies in English and Spanish, and we brought our messaging to over 10,000 people online through social media and emails. Remember, all of our smart strategies are downloadable in both languages. We made virtual presentations, and we were featured on the Gazette Times' front page above and below the fold. And we received a 2-page spread in First Alternative Co-op's quarterly magazine, The Times. Our team produced 12 more Kitchen Confessions blogs, 30 since we first started. We launched our first ever leftover recipes contest. And most notably, we completed production of 3 15-minute video versions of our popular in-school presentation. Students can now view this eco-edutainment in the classroom or virtually, and so can you. These videos are on YouTube. Find them from our website or on a No Food Left Behind playlist on the Coalition's YouTube channel. That's right, a Coalition YouTube channel. Although these videos are geared towards a younger audience, next slide, using local talent, they truly are suitable for all ages. The videos are so fun and informative. We think you'll love them. Next slide. No Food Left Behind staff want to publicly thank the Coalition leadership for supporting us through this intensive video production process. And that's our team. Does waste prevention resonate with you? Get involved. There's several ways to join us. You can adopt a block. It only takes a couple hours, a few times a year, but it has a big impact. You can encourage your family to waste less food and save money and help spread the good word. And you can join us monthly on Zoom for updates on these projects and to explore new ideas for preventing waste in our community. The meetings are recorded for future playback. Here's the next 3 meeting dates, led by our team co-leader, Ms. Dawn Marie Gade. Thank you.
Jeanette, thank you so much. And our next speaker is Johanna Hamilton, who leads our Community Inclusion Action Team. Johanna?
Hi. So the vision for our community is that all people of Corvallis have a sense of belonging, they're treated justly, have a sense of connection, and are represented in the community. Next slide. So throughout 2021, our team has continued to introduce the Coalition's other action teams to the Equity Impact Assessment, which is the tool that we're using to evaluate the equity and other action teams projects. So 9 of the action teams have had an orientation to the Equity Impact Assessment, and 2 more teams will have their orientation next month in February. So for those teams that have used this tool, it's changed the way that we work, leading to deeper discussions and new insights as we plan and implemented various activities. So we will continue to use the Equity Impact Assessment, knowing that this is a long-term process and not a one and done activity. Continued use of the Equity Impact Assessment is just the first step, and we know that there's much, much more we need to do to address inequities in our community. Next slide, please. So last year, our big project, the Community Inclusion Action Team, reached out to the Natural Areas Action Team to initiate a new project. We've named our new project Neighborhood Roots, and our goal is to bring together neighbors to plant trees in the neighborhoods to address both climate justice and climate change. Next slide, please. So if you're wondering, what is the connection between planting trees and climate justice? So urban heat islands are areas of the community that are warmer than other areas because they have a lot of pavement, but fewer trees and other plants. So in a warming planet, extreme temperatures in the summer can mean the difference between life and death. Lower income neighborhoods tend to have fewer trees than higher income neighborhoods, making them more susceptible to the heat island effect. More trees in a neighborhood will make it cooler and more livable. Next slide, please. So once we agreed to collaborate on the Neighborhood Roots project, the 2 teams used the Equity Impact Assessment to begin our planning. Our first step towards implementation was to identify tree deserts or neighborhoods in our Corvallis community that have very few trees but a lot of pavement. And after consulting with city staff, we began to look for different neighborhoods in need of street trees. And we used online tools and in-person ground truthing to select a neighborhood. Next slide, please. So we also developed letters and handouts to reach out to homeowners and renters in the neighborhood to begin the process of engagement and relationship building to get the locals more involved. But this fall, city staff handed off this initial project site to another volunteer group to plant street trees, and staff suggested that we plant on private property instead of in the city right away. Next slide, please. So our plan for 2022 is to identify neighborhoods in our community where trees are needed in front yards. From there, we'll begin to connect with neighbors, plant trees together, and create cooler neighborhoods. So please let us know if you'd like to be involved and help out. Next slide, please. Thanks to a generous donation from a longtime coalition supporter, the Community Inclusion Action Team was a co-sponsor of the 2021 Champion-Nephew Lecture Series. So this very popular series, which started in 2017, features topics and presenters that are selected by the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. So this year's 3 lectures were titled Fire Since Time Immemorial, Trees and Forests of Mary's Peak, and Oregon's Water, What Coyote Can Tell Us. Next slide, please. We hope you'll consider joining the Community Inclusion Action Team. If you're interested, please sign on to our Google group so you can receive announcements about our team meetings. And thank you.
Thank you, Johanna. And our next speaker is Cassandra Robertson, who co-leads our Housing Action Team. Cassandra?
Hello. So the 4 goals in the housing section of the action framework relate to affordable housing, sustainable existing and new housing, and homelessness. Next slide. Microshelters provide transitional housing for our community members who have been unhoused. The first microshelters in Corvallis were conceived and constructed in 2019 under the Coalition's Housing Action Team. Unity Shelter was established in 2020 as a nonprofit that provides sheltering and transitional housing for unhoused community members. Microshelters are now part of Unity Shelter's Safe Place program. There are currently 31 microshelters on the properties of 4 faith communities in Corvallis and at the men's shelter too. Although the microshelters vary in design, they are typically 8 feet by 15 feet. They're insulated, lockable sleeping units. They include electric heating and cooling and lighting. In 2021, the Sustainability Coalition continued to collect donations towards the microshelter program we helped launch, transferring more than $16,000 to support Safe Place. Thank you so much for all your donations. So in addition to exploring solutions for unhoused community members, the Housing Action Team has a sustainable housing work group that has launched 3 projects. They are motivated by concerns about climate change and the desire to help people create more comfortable, lower cost housing that is also more energy efficient. 75% of energy use in our homes is typically from heating, water heating, cooling, and lighting. One of our volunteers is a retired architect. She has created an awesome new program, home retrofit clinics, to assist local homeowners in making their homes more energy efficient. She offers free 2-hour Zoom consultations with individual homeowners, focusing on their home's energy use and helping them chart a path that moves away from the use of fossil fuels. In 2021, Nancy completed 41 retrofit clinics, and she's eager to do more. So please sign up to work with her. The Sustainable Housing Work Group wants to recognize those in our community who have taken major steps to combat climate change. If your home is all electric and solar powered, we have a yard sign for you. Please contact Mike Beilstein for more information. His email is there on the slide. Since the Sustainability Coalition doesn't participate in direct legislative advocacy, members of the Sustainable Housing Work Group created a new advocacy group this year that's separate from the coalition. It's called Electrify Corvallis, and they are focusing their efforts on education and advocacy to discourage the use of natural gas and to encourage both existing and new homes to be all electric. If you are interested in exploring solutions and taking action on homelessness, sustainable housing, or affordable housing, we hope that you'll join us. Our team meets on the 2nd Monday of the month at 12:30. Come and check us out.
Thank you so much, Cassandra.
Thank you so much.
The vision for the natural areas section of the action framework is our natural features, hillsides, floodplains, streams, wetlands, and other open spaces in natural areas are protected and treasured. The Natural Areas Action Team is guided by the wish to protect and connect natural areas to people and wildlife. One of the ways we've accomplished that this year is with the Pollinator Patch Project. This project is an effort to provide nectar resources and habitat for pollinators. Pollinator numbers are declining from lack of year-round diverse food. Bees live where there's food, and depending on the size of the bee, they can fly about 3 blocks to find food. So by creating multiple patches, especially in green spaces, we can increase the amount of habitat for pollinators. In 2021, we began a project at Crystal Lake parking lot. Last April, 13 people came out to weed and mulch several of the islands. Weeding helps reduce competition of resources so our chosen species can thrive. The next steps are to plant and spread wildflower mix, then continue to monitor the patches and do more weedings or supplemental plantings as needed. So we hope that you'll join the Natural Areas Action Team Google group to stay up to date on work parties. If you're somebody who likes to get outside and get your hands in the soil and help our local ecosystem, we invite you to join us. And our next speaker is Eliza Tuttle, who leads the Coalition's Food Action Team. Eliza?
Hi, thanks, Annette. My name is Eliza Tuttle. I'm the facilitator of the Food Action Team. We work towards a vision where we are fed primarily by food, which is locally produced, using practices that renew and enrich the land and community. Next slide. To work towards this vision, we have 3 goals, and in each of our goals, we have at least one action. Goal 1 is we're working with the Farm to Table Month action to accomplish this goal. Goal 2, one of our actions is It's on Us Corvallis, and goal 3, we have 2 actions. One is the Garden Resource Guide and the MPK kiosks. So I'll start with the Garden Resource Guide. The Garden Resource Guide is updated every year and has everything you ever want to know about gardening in Benton County. There's book lists, garden centers, neighborhood community gardens, preservation resources, poultry resources. If you feel yourself wanting to do a Google search, I encourage you to just search this booklet instead. We probably have the answer. We want to thank our sponsors this year for allowing us to do printed versions again. These printed versions are available at local garden centers. And there's also an online version that you can download from the website. Next slide. We also have the Neighborhood Planter Kiosk Action. Each month, Food Action Team members update MPK posters in partnership with other gardening groups. These little kiosks are a wonderful neighborhood source of information, and they add a bright splash of color to front lawns. If you would like to be an MPK host, you can get in touch. We also funded a part-time farmer for Growing Ancestral Roots, which is a local BIPOC-focused group that grows culturally appropriate food in ways that connect and enrich the community under this goal. Next slide. For goal 1, we have Local Eats Month. This year we partnered with 14 local restaurants and worked to connect farmers to restaurants directly. We asked restaurants, what ingredients would you like to source locally? And then we asked farmers, what would you like to sell to restaurants? Then we played matchmaker and connected them by sharing contact information. Encouraging eating locally produced food in partnership with restaurants is challenging because of gaps in infrastructure to support the local food system. And we're in search of partnerships and volunteers for this project for this year. So if Farm to Table makes you drool, please get in touch. Next slide. The 4th and final project of the Food Action Team is It's on Us Corvallis. It's on Us Corvallis' mission is to build community and help the local economy through food. To do this, we pay locally owned restaurants full price to make meals for people in the community with low or no incomes. Next slide. And in addition to reaching almost 20,000 people on social media, that's about a third of Corvallis, we conducted outreach to the Sheriff's Office to contribute to a more organized emergency response that plays to the strengths of locally owned businesses and decreases dependency on emergency volunteers. We also conducted outreach to the Corvallis Daytime Drop-In Center to increase food access for a selection of their guests. Next slide. Last year, we asked people who wanted meals to line up twice a week for a meal chosen by the restaurant. This program required a lot of volunteer time, and by choosing the time, place, and meal for participants, it was not open to everyone. I can't tell you the amount of emails that I got about dietary restrictions and preferences and scheduling, let alone coordinating these meals with restaurants. And also, we didn't think it was humane to ask people to line up for free food in the middle of a pandemic. So this year, we streamlined and put the choice back into the desires of the eaters and allowed diners to feel a sense of normalcy. We did this by partnering with a smartphone app, Kudo, to distribute gift cards. People sign up to be randomly selected for a gift card. These cards can be used at these locations around Corvallis. And we have all different types of cuisine and are always adding more. So Japanese, Salvadorian, Chinese, Mexican, and many others. Because anybody can use Kudo to pay for their meals, it allows people who are getting free food a sense of anonymity and dignity. And it reduces the logistics required to run this volunteer program to about 1 hour a week, while increasing the number of meals available. It's an IOU community meal day every day, where you want, when you want, and the food you want, with a sustainable volunteer time commitment. Next slide. And it would not be possible without you. We extend a huge thank you to all of our amazing donors. Your money goes directly back into the local economy using the idea of the local multiplier effect. Your donations are circulated up to 7 times right here in Corvallis, so thank you. And we are actively fundraising. You can support this project by donating, by sharing IOU Corvallis' social media with your friends and family, and by just sharing the idea. So if supporting locally owned business and building community sounds better than watching this season's Bachelor or watching grass grow, please get in touch. We are actively looking for more volunteers. Next slide. And finally, we encourage you to join our delicious group by joining our Facebook, our Google group, or just coming to a Zoom meeting. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Elisa. The vision for energy for our community is Corvallis has achieved energy security and net zero greenhouse gas emissions. Our goals are reduce energy consumption in buildings using energy efficiency and conservation, achieve 100% renewable energy, and no net greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. We have 4 work groups that are addressing these ambitious climate change goals. The first is Solarize Corvallis. Partnering with Oregon Clean Power Cooperative, our goal is to accelerate the transition to solar power by putting large-scale solar systems at schools, nonprofits, government buildings, businesses, and faith communities. In 2020, we used community investment and community donations to help fund 3 major solar projects. A 150 kilowatt ground mounted solar array was installed next to the Corvallis School District office on 35th Street. A 100 kilowatt solar system was installed on the roof of Old Mill Center for children and families. And a 110 kilowatt solar system was installed on the roof of the Benton County office building on Research Way. Oregon Clean Power Co-op is allowing community members to directly invest $1,000 per share in our solar infrastructure for disaster preparedness and the impacts of climate change. So in 2021, we added more projects. First was an additional 150 kilowatts on the rooftop of Corvallis High School, including $120,000 in community investments. A 40 kilowatt solar installation at the First United Methodist Church. The church congregation raised all of the funds for this project, with enough to also add solar batteries, one of the first large facilities in Corvallis to have solar battery backup. The final project that was completed in 2021 was the Block 15 tap room and brewery. Block 15 was our first business participant. The local owners of Block 15 were able to use federal tax credits as well as community investments. A ribbon cutting event that's being planned for this spring will have some surprises for attendees, so stay tuned. Last spring, Corvallis Housing First purchased the former budget in to develop it into housing for community members who are experiencing homelessness. Solarize Corvallis offered to enable Corvallis Housing First to get solar and in the process redirect the cost savings from lower energy costs toward their primary mission. We raised $20,000 for 20 kilowatts of solar in 20 days. And I want to thank all of you who stepped forward to donate to that campaign. The solar contractor for this project, EnergyWise Services, applied for state funds and raised enough additional funding to increase the size of the solar system by 50%. So a 30 kilowatt solar array is being installed this week, right now at 3rd Street Commons. I received an email this morning from Peter Greenberg of EnergyWise Services. He's up on the roof. A second work group for the Energy Action Team is focused on home energy score. Marge Stevens has been working on initiating a home energy score program in Corvallis since 2016. She's participated in many trainings, and a team was formed in early 2021 to help Marge in this quest. A home energy score starts with an inspection to evaluate a home's energy efficiency. It's like an Energy Star rating for appliances or miles per gallon for cars. Home energy score programs have been voluntary in the state of Oregon for more than 10 years. The findings are for information only. No upgrades are required. In the Corvallis Climate Action Plan, home performance ratings are the second highest priority strategy in the buildings and energy section. 3 Oregon communities, Portland, Milwaukee, and Hillsborough, have mandatory home energy score programs. And other communities, including Corvallis, are considering implementing such a program. The home energy score process is simple. And this is for the mandatory programs. The home seller pays for an inspection, a licensed inspector completes the inspection, and then the home score is added to the multiple listing service. The Home Energy Score Work Group discussed this program with realtors and realtor organizations, individual city councilors, and the city's Climate Action Advisory Board. A key message is that home energy score programs address both climate change and equity. It's a consumer protection program, so prospective owners know what their energy bills will be. The Residential Energy Efficiency Work Group is a collaboration with Seeds for the Soul, a local nonprofit whose founder, Julie Williams, serves on the Energy Action Team. Seeds for the Soul offers zero-interest loans to low and middle-income homeowners to help them put solar on their homes. The loans are repaid using money saved on the home's energy bills, so there's no impact on the homeowner's monthly budget. Seeds has a variety of funding sources, including individual community members who have several ways to support low and middle income homeowners. So there are some opportunities to help support the various programs that Seeds works on. They also help fund energy saving and cost saving heat pump water heaters. So we hope you'll spread the word around the community about all of the work that Seeds for the Soul is working on and all that they have to offer, particularly to lower income community members. Our local and state government action work group tracks state government climate action and informs community members and local legislators about climate action progress. This group also initiated a statewide grassroots climate action network made up of volunteer groups from Oregon communities that address climate change, groups like ours. This network shares local successes and resources. In 2021, the network heard presentations about the Oregon Clean Power Co-op and Seeds for the Soul, since both of these Corvallis-based organizations offer models that can be used in other Oregon communities. The Energy Action Team meets quarterly, with our work groups meeting in the intervening months. The next quarterly meeting of the Energy Action Team is April 13th, and we welcome new members to join us, both at that quarterly meeting or before then, join one of our work groups. So our next speaker is Cindy Lolick, who has been leading our Economic Vitality Action Team. Cindy?
Thank you, Annette. Our vision for the economic vitality section of the action framework is Corvallis is a home to a vibrant, diverse, and sustainable economy anchored by a broad spectrum of local, environmentally friendly businesses. Next. The goals are supporting the local economy through buying, investing, and producing locally, using sustainable practices at workplaces, and engaging in community networks to help people meet their needs while minimizing resource consumption. Next. In 2021, the Coalition continued to sponsor 2 programs that support economic vitality in our community. The first is Saving Green, in which our part-time sustainability outreach specialist, Jeanette Hardison, provides free assistance to Corvallis businesses and nonprofits that want to decrease their environmental footprint and their operating costs. She typically does on-site assessments for small and medium-sized workplaces to help them increase their energy and water efficiency, reduce their waste, and save money in the process. Next. Although COVID has prevented her from doing that on-site assessments and follow-ups, she has been able to connect with many local workplaces with money-saving LED lighting upgrades through the Energy Trust of Oregon. In 2020, she helped several businesses and nonprofits install about $277,000 worth of lighting upgrades for only $5,300. And in 2021, these workplaces continued to save $38,000 annually on their power bills. She has also worked closely with the Energy Trust of Oregon this year in planning to bring a new round of LED lighting upgrades to our community in 2022. Next. Also this past year, Jeanette has been part of a collaborative group that is planning a reusable takeout container program for local eateries. They've got some exciting plans, so stay tuned. Things are going to be rolling out sooner than later. Next. The second program the Coalition sponsors to promote economic vitality is the Buy Local First campaign, which we launched more than 10 years ago. This year's holiday promotion was co-sponsored by the Corvallis Chamber, First Alternative Co-op, and Remarkable Arts. Our Buy Local First social media campaign began the day after Thanksgiving and continued until Christmas Eve to encourage community members to support our local businesses for their holiday shopping. Next. Those who registered with the campaign were entered into a drawing for a $250 gift card to use at the participating business of their choice. The lucky winner chose the Golden Crane, and here she is with the co-owners of that local business. She was very excited to get that card. Next. Also part of the holiday campaign, First Alternative Co-op held a Buy Local First Day on December 20th. They donated 10% of sales on local products from that day, more than $2,000 to It's On Us, Corvallis. Next. So what's next? The Economic Vitality Action Team is always looking for new members. The team is currently meeting online on the second Tuesday of the month at 3:30 p.m., and you're welcome to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. The vision for the land use section of the action framework is Corvallis is home to a vibrant, diverse, and sustainable economy. Oops, sorry about that. Corvallis is a compact, resilient city with walkable neighborhoods, a vibrant downtown and diverse natural areas interwoven in urban landscapes whose community members actively participate in land use planning decisions. The land use goals focus broadly on community livability, land use and transportation, and green building and natural areas. For nearly 3 years now, the Land Use Action Team of the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition has been studying parking in Corvallis. We have viewed this as a significant issue since our community allocates approximately 25% of its land to car dependence. In collaboration with the League of Women Voters of Corvallis, we held 2 public meetings, engaged in numerous discussions, and studied the 7 white papers that had been produced by the city's consultant who had been hired to conduct a parking audit for the city. In early 2021, and over a period of 3 months, our team members delivered a series of presentations to City Council during the community comment section of their meetings. Our purpose was to point out the connections between parking and a myriad of issues, such as parking and affordable housing, parking and climate change, and the competing uses of public areas devoted to parking. As the culmination of our exploration of parking, the team developed a set of 5 recommendations and presented them to City Council in early January of this year. The timing coincides with the Council's consideration of the consultant's recommendations, so this issue is still in process. The Land Use Action Team is always looking for new members. We have been looking at a number of other issues related to land use, such as mixed use. Our next meeting is this Thursday, tomorrow night at 7 p.m., and we invite you to join us. Our next speaker is Steve Starcevich, who leads our Transportation Action Team.
Thank you, Annette. Let me see. The Transportation Action Team had to cancel most of our in-person events for the year, but we did host 3 public lectures about how we can accelerate our transition to sustainable transportation in Corvallis. If you missed any of them, the links to the recorded talks can be found on the Coalition website. Our first talk, next slide, please. Our first talk was sponsored by the Coalition, Corvallis Right-of-Way, and the Dixon Creek Neighborhood Association, and funded by the City of Corvallis Community Empowerment Grant. This Safer Streets lecture, called Rethinking Streets, was presented by Dr. Mark Schlossberg, who is Professor of City Planning at the University of Oregon. Mark leads a study abroad course to Denmark and the Netherlands, 2 countries that have revolutionized street design and have shifted from cars dominating cities to cities where most people bike and walk. His Rethinking Streets books can be downloaded for free at rethinkingstreets.com. These books highlight case studies of American streets redesigned to include active transportation and the success they've had at increasing walking and biking. Next slide, please. Mark was blunt in his talk. If a city is serious about cutting carbon pollution, creating truly safe routes to school, promoting active transportation, and making walking and biking safe, comfortable, and convenient, then it has to do these 3 things. Install separated bikeways or protected bike lanes on every busy street, provide a connected network of neighborhood greenways designed to limit vehicle speeds, build protected intersections at the junction of busy streets. Mark's talk focused on points 1 and 2. As for 3, it was covered in our second lecture. Intersections for People, sponsored by the Coalition and the city's active transportation group, was presented by Nick Falbo, who is a senior transportation planner in the Portland Bureau of Transportation. He has popularized in the US the Dutch design concept of the protected intersection. Most of us know from experience, intersections are the most dangerous part of our streets. Corvallis police data on reported collisions from 2011 to 2015 show that A motor vehicle collides with a cyclist or pedestrian almost once a week in Corvallis. And two-thirds of those were caused by a driver making a mistake at an intersection. Nick's talk focused on the design and implementation of protected intersections and how they increase the safety of people walking, cycling, and driving, and encourage more people to walk and bike to get around town. The protected intersection is actually part of our city's active transportation toolkit, but so far the city has not yet implemented one in any of our intersections. Next slide. Protected bike lanes and protected intersections flow from one of the sustainable safety principles of the Dutch Institute for Road Safety Research that puts the focus properly on safe street design. Humans make errors and willingly or unwillingly break rules. This is a given that cannot be changed. So roads and streets should be designed in such a way that this natural human behavior does not lead to crashes and injuries. To get our city moving faster in this direction, Mark and Nick suggest these three things: raise public awareness about safe street design, increase local political will and leadership for safer streets, and push city staff to gain knowledge and expertise needed to implement a safe street design. Okay, next slide, please. Now, as the speaker in our final talk asked, are you ready to get wonky? This talk is wonkily entitled Oregon Regulatory Pathways to Decarbonize Energy, Transportation Electrification. And it was presented by our very own resident wonk, Christy Anderson Brecken, who is senior instructor in applied economics at OSU. In this talk, Christy shows that the transportation sector produces almost 30% of greenhouse gas emissions in the US. We have technically and economically feasible pathways to decarbonizing transportation, and transportation electrification is a vital step. Next slide. As you can tell from this figure from Christy's talk, the US and Oregon as well have fallen way behind the European pace of transportation electrification. In this talk, Christy goes deep into the ways in which Oregon can accelerate transportation electrification and suggests ways in which Oregon citizens can get involved, stay informed, and influence policy. The Transportation Action Team would like to thank our sponsors, our participants, with a special thanks to Sarah Bronstein for being our awesome Q&A moderator, and then everyone that attended these public lectures and asked so many great questions. Much appreciated. And if you would like to get involved with the Transportation Action Team, you are welcome to attend our monthly meeting, join our Google group, and get on our email list. All of this, including the links to the public lectures, you can access through the Coalition's website. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, very much. So 2 of our action teams were not meeting last year due to COVID, but they're resuming their work this year. The Education Action Team's work involves supporting the green teams at each of the public schools. They just recently received notification that volunteers are being allowed back in the schools. So they're very excited to be resuming their work with the students. If you're interested in joining that team, their next meeting is on February 15th. The co-leaders of the Health and Human Services Action Team are both in the public health field, so they have been extremely busy, as you can imagine. But they're eager to resume online meetings, and that team's first meeting of the year will be on February 25th, when the team will be having an orientation to the use of the equity impact assessment that Johanna talked about earlier, using the team's air quality project as the focal point. To join either of these teams, please join their Google group to stay up to date with meeting announcements. And now for our final action team speaker, Dave Eckert, who leads our water action team. David?
Thank you, Annette. Welcome to the Water Action Team. We have 3 areas we work in: tangible action, collaboration, and engaged youth. In tangible action, what that means is everything we do has real impacts. We are out there, outside, working. And for the last 6 years, we've worked primarily on generating creek buffers and wetlands. We make sure that all of our projects are culturally relevant. And we've just started getting interested in beaver technologies. We collaborate with a lot of groups you can see here on this screen. And on every project I talk about, we are collaborating, but time does not allow us to say for each program who we're collaborating with. Just know these groups are our partners. And we engage a lot of people, and especially youth. Most of our volunteers are youth up through university age. This year, we had 135 active volunteers working in the field. We put in over 2,500 hours, and I'm proud to say we had 0 meetings. We have 9 city sites we work on and 4 school sites that we've worked on in 2021. Our biggest project is the North Dani Creek Regeneration site at Bald Hill Natural Area, where there used to be an ancient stream flowing through it, but it is nowhere to be seen now because it was placed underground in a pipe, and the multimodal path, former farm road, cut it off. And so what we're doing is we're regenerating it this year. We followed up on some initial cuts of the underground agricultural tile pipes, drainage pipes, and we did 9 more cuts this year. That was a big deal. And we've, in order to find these pipes, they're underground, 4 feet through clay. And we have to use that big trencher. And we, the way we find it is we kick up terracotta shards from the pipe. And we know we've cut it then. And you can see how deep we go, over 4 feet deep. And there's the pipe down below that's exposed once we cut it. And we have to fill the up creek and down creek ends of the pipe with cement to disable and disconnect the pipe. Then we install T-posts, metal T-posts, so we can know where those pipes were, and we can then research on how the hydrology changes. Our big project this year, in addition to that, was planting 950 additional plants of 23 native species. And we get a lot of volunteers out there, and it really represents a lot of hope. People are very excited when they can get out in November and put these in the ground. And over a 3-day period, we had over 100 volunteers out there planting. And you can see the quality of the plants we get from Seven Oaks Native Nursery, the size, and how energetic. Look at that picture. And that picture, you can really see people are putting in a lot of loving care into their work. Here's one of the 950 plants. And people not only have hope when they're planting, they also gain a lot of satisfaction. And that really is very beneficial to all of us right now. And this year, one of our team members formed a team with OSU students to survey the over 7,000 plants we've already planted since 2016 of 33 native species. And we're using that survey to gain knowledge on how our project is moving forward. We also, as I said, got interested in beaver technologies, and we started building what we call creek diversion habitat structures, CDHS, because when the creek starts flowing, we want to make sure we're holding some back, diverting it, and creates habitat for frogs and amphibians and reptiles and birds, and some mammals. And you can see on the left where we'd only made a couple cuts in the pipe in 2021, how the stream flowed when during the wet season. And then down here on the right, you can see how it braided the way we want it for a natural stream. The biggest issue that we got approved this year was a culvert replacement under the multimodal path, and that will be installed this June. You will notice it this June or July if you ever go out to the Bald Hill. And if you want to learn more about this very detailed program, go to YouTube and search for A Gift for Bald Hill, and this session will come up. Our next big project is Dani Creek Filtering Wetland over at Starker Arts Natural Area, where we work with partners to regenerate a wetland, and it is functioning very well now. Look at that. I mean, it's wasn't like that at all, putting in interpretive signs, and we put in more shrubs this year, but we put in thousands of plants overall, and it's looking great. Another project is at Lamprey Creek at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Park. Worked since 2015, and we put in a new site in 2021 with more plants, and we're regenerating from a lawn going right up to the creek bank with now a new area there. If you want to know more about Lamprey Creek naming that we worked on a long time ago, go to YouTube and type in Lamprey Creek Awakening, and you'll have a good time there. And then another big project since 2010 is Crescent Valley Native Arboretum. You can look at it before and after, and we keep planting more with students. And if you want to go to YouTube to learn about that, search on YouTube for Crescent Valley Native Arboretum. Another big project is the South Corvallis Greenway proposal. We started working in 2014 and came out with an official proposal this year. The city and ODOT. Go to YouTube, type in South Corvallis Greenway proposal, and you'll find out all about it. And it's a big flooded area, and it's an area where segregation is caused by 99W, and we're trying to fix that. We're also just completing a film we made and last year, 9-minute video about the damming of Oak Creek. One good, one bad. The beaver built were good, the human built not so good. So we talk about that in 9 minutes. That'll be on YouTube. Look at this gorgeous area filled with beavers and their beaver technologies. And almost nobody has been to this site, and it's just awe-inspiring. And there it is. And finally, we're working surveys on Oak Creek, going throughout the upper Oak Creek area. And we need some surveyors. If you want to help us out, regular people can do it. And finally, go to YouTube and type in Oak Creek, Journey of an Ancient Stream. You'll learn about the journey of Oak Creek. So join the Water Action Team, no meetings, weekly updates, outdoor activities, immediate results. To contact me to join, there's my contact. Thank you very much.
So thanks to all of our Action Team volunteers for their work to help us create a sustainable community. We're fortunate to have many additional volunteers. Who supported the work of our action teams in 2021 as members of our operating committees, as well as 2 terrific part-time staff and several hardworking contractors. The coalition doesn't have membership dues, so we rely heavily on donations from our partner organizations and individuals to support our programs, and we'd like to take a moment to recognize some of them now. Engaged partners are those who have contributed $250 or more to the coalition's general fund or endowment fund. Engaged partners are recognized on our letterhead and at major coalition events. The following individuals and organizations are our engaged partners. We have 3 levels of engaged partners: champions, sustainers, and supporters. We are extremely grateful to our engaged partners for their generous support. We would also like to say thank you to our monthly donors. Contributing even just a few dollars on a regular basis helps provide us with a stable source of funding. So when you agree to make a monthly donation, that means we can count on you, whether you can afford $5 a month or $500 a month. Your contribution makes a difference. Every donation helps empower us to do more to advance the creation of a sustainable community. We would like to thank all of our donors. Donations of any amount are welcome. If you'd like to show your support for the coalition through a financial contribution, please go to our website. We really appreciate your support. Before we leave 2021 behind, we'd like to invite our partner organizations to submit their accomplishments to the 2021 Community Scrapbook. We know that in spite of the challenges, many of our partners have achieved amazing things this past year, and we'd like to share their stories. So we'll be sending details to our partner representatives in the next day or 2. Since it's difficult to know when we can meet in person again for a big event like the Sustainability Fair in Town Hall, or even for smaller events like our quarterly gatherings at the public library, we do know this, that our volunteers will continue to work with a sense of urgency, even as the pandemic fades. Huge challenges like climate change and systemic racism will continue to drive us. Both climate action and social equity will continue to be very high priorities for us. We'll continue to work with dedication, knowing that each and every one of us can be a change maker, and we'll continue to work with persistence, holding our gaze on a sustainable future, having faith that if we work together, a livable planet for everyone is possible. It all adds up to action, and we would love to have you join us. We live at a time in human history when we're witness to the devastating impacts of human choices on our beautiful, precious planet. We can choose to ignore these signs and go about our lives as though nothing has changed, or we can seize this opportunity to be part of a great transition, to live lightly on the earth and to work together to create a sustainable community and a sustainable world. We hope that what we've shared with you during the past hour has inspired some questions, and we'd like to hear your questions now. So at this time, I'd like to ask all of our speakers to turn on their videos while I introduce the Vice Facilitator of the Sustainability Coalition, Brandon Tralstead, who will be leading us in the Q&A.
Thanks, Annette. We've got a couple that I think we're going to route the first one to Jeanette. If you're ready for that one, I know our panelists can see the Q&A in the chat. And this question, I'll just read it out, and then I'll click the button and the audience will be able to see it. And so it asks about the generation of waste from tearing down buildings, specifically in this case, schools, rather than being renovated and reused. Is there any plans to create an understanding with the school board about reuse? And so I know a little bit about this, but I'll invite Jeanette, who most likely knows a little bit more, to respond.
Thank you, Brandon, and thank you for your question, Phil. I believe Brandon may have more information. I can tell you that I spoke with the 509J Sustainability Coordinator, Bailey Payne, and understand that our school district's mixed demolition waste is being diverted to a materials recovery facility, or MRF, in Brooks, outside of Oregon, and that will ensure at least 20% more recycling will be gleaned out of the mixed waste. And that's in addition to any on-site recycling, in particular, scrap metal is one of the easiest. That's being done on site. Brandon, do you have more information on that?
I don't have a ton more information other than, renovation rather than demolition is a big part of the school district's plan. And so I don't have the numbers available to me, but this is something we could follow up later on if needed. But many of the buildings are actually being renovated rather than torn down. And those that undergo some major construction effort, as Jeanette said, material reclamation is a big component of that. My sense is that the school district is going over and above what is standard industry practice for construction in reusing and reclaiming as much material as possible. So it's a good question. A lot of our waste does come from construction related activities. So our next question probably is for Jeanette as well, asking about an NPR piece called Green to Go that aired in December out of North Carolina. So is anybody in the Corvallis area initiating such a project? And the nature of the project was to recirculate used food to go containers. So Jeanette, can you talk about that for a moment?
I can briefly, yeah. I actually saw the question early on in the meeting and looked online and was able to look through a transcript of that show, and saw that it was largely about reusables and instituting reusables in grocery stores and also, like you said, in eateries. And as Cindy indicated, the Corvallis area, we have a number of us actually with people in eateries, the co-op, the coalition, the city, the county, there's individuals. And we're all just kind of this think tank of figuring out how can we institute a Go Box program in Corvallis. So our working name, not official name, but Benton to Go is what we're running with. And we're not going to call it a box because we may even institute a reusable cup program in Corvallis. So there's a lot of work to set something like that up, a lot of research. We want to run a pilot project, but why start it with no knowledge. So we're doing a lot of research first on the programs that are working in other communities, not just in Oregon, but across the United States, and figuring out, what their lessons have been, so we don't have to relearn those. And then we're moving forward. So as Cindy said, we're pretty excited about it, and look forward to being able to announce that to our community. Thanks. Yeah. For a relatively inexpensive buy-in once, then you have your container and you can bring it back the next time and get it swapped out at participating eateries for a fresh sanitized container and not be generating any disposable one-time use packaging. So yay, thanks for the question.
Awesome. I love it. I can't wait to buy in.
I
So
know,
I'll
me
look
too.
for that hopefully in the next few months.
Yeah.
So our next question is for Johanna, the questioner is asking Johanna directly. If you're choosing trees that are native and support nature in I think that relates to the urban heat island question.
Yeah, so thanks for that question. So basically, we are gonna try and collaborate and get in contact with Seven Oaks Native Nursery to find out what species they have, because by the time we start planning, it'll be about November. So we are going to develop a list of appropriate trees for various properties and collaborate with tree buddies to select which trees the residents want. And also after we talk to Seven Oaks Native Nursery, that'll give us like a better idea of which trees and which species we're gonna use. So yeah, it's a great question.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, there are a couple of questions about that. So there's one here, and I'm hoping one of our panelists can address this about the Neighborhood Roots project in natural areas. If they're interested in collaborating with crowdsourced information on air temperature, humidity, and other conditions that are being monitored and biodiversity before and after planting. And I don't know if we have anybody on screen right now who can speak to that. I cannot directly, so we might have to punt that and wait for Annette to come back later or address it a different day. So we can come back to that one, but let me see. There's a question if the presentation will be available online. So yes, this is being recorded, and with other events, I think our plan is to post it on the coalition's website, sustainablecorvallis.org, here in the next couple of weeks. So thanks for that question. Another one potentially for Jeanette, any progress on encouraging Republic Services to provide a construction waste diverting or sorting option at Coffin Butte landfill?
Yeah, Carl, thanks for your question. I haven't been attending the SWAC, the Solid Waste Advisory Committee meetings in the last few months, so I don't know the answer to that, but that is something I can follow up with you on.
Okay, and while we have you, Jeanette, another question about any plans to try and influence Benton County to renovate and reuse the existing courthouse and jail rather than building entirely new.
That is not something that I have any information on. I'm
Yeah,
certain
same
the
here.
county has some green priorities, so I'm sure that's being looked at.
One more of a comment here that I'll just address briefly is that a comment says, pretty sure that OSU Food Services has had a container reuse program for a few years. And yes, I think one of the partners mentioned in that slide was OSU in the reuse option. So I believe there's some collaboration happening there.
And actually, he's one of our leads on this project.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Let me see. So this is an energy related question. I'm not sure who might be able to field this since our expert is off right now, but Lincoln School has solar panels and a battery backup for community use in an emergency. And so, yes, we are willing to mention that. And so that was something that came, I believe, from a recommendation that came out of the school district's community process. When the bond measure passed and the renovations were going forward. I don't know if anybody on screen right now has more information they want to share that can add to that. Sorry, I don't know enough details on this one, but all right. Question for the food action team. Again, our main representative is off for that, but we might have a couple other folks who can respond to that. Eliza, maybe. So has the food action team thought of encouraging community garden or allotments?
Yes, that is
Okay.
directly in line with one of our goals. And it sounds like this person seems passionate about this, and I would encourage you to get in touch with the Food Action Team. And we would love to increase community gardens and allotments. It's just volunteer capacity right now.
Great. All right. So that is all the questions in the chat. We do have more time if people will give folks a couple more minutes to input any other information they want into the Q&A, not into the chat. So our panelists, is there anything that we didn't cover that we want to mention now, or we want to give folks another minute or two to get some last questions into the Q&A? There's one that just came in. Okay, some they're trickling in. All right, great. So one asks about the home energy score program. Is it only for homes about to be sold? And yes, that's my understanding, is that the home energy score program would really come into effect when a transaction takes place. So when a home is listed for sale, it wouldn't be used necessarily on existing homes. An existing homeowner can always go through the scoring process with a contractor. So there's nothing that precludes an existing home that's not changing hands to be scored. But that would be really up to the owner of that residence to contract with a contractor, get an estimate, and that information. So yes, the answer is yes. Okay, another question that I think I can cover in part because of my involvement in the Climate Action Advisory Board for the city, but I'll invite any of the panelists to add to this if necessary. The question is that Eugene passed a rule to prevent any new residential natural gas connections. Is that something that Corvallis City Council is looking into? And I can say City Council is not looking into it quite yet, but there was a group mentioned earlier called Electrify Corvallis, and that group has engaged with the city's Climate Action Advisory Board to raise that question in Corvallis. So it's still very early in the process, but that is something that's being considered and is very likely to be discussed at I believe it's February 17. I could have the exact date wrong, but the next Climate Action Advisory Board is around February 17. And this will be part of the discussion at that meeting. So I would anticipate some conversation that remains in this community for at least the next few months, and potentially a recommendation to City Council later this year on that topic. All right, help me out here, panelists. If you see anything you want to jump on, they're coming in faster than I can read at this point and respond to at the same time. There is a question about dark skies and light pollution restrictions in Corvallis. Does anybody want to take that? If not, I can attempt to, but not seeing anybody unmute so quickly. Just, a partially informed comment from my time on the Climate Action Advisory Board is that light pollution restrictions in Corvallis are really driven by local code. And so there are some provisions, whether they're strict enough to meet the I believe it's a national or maybe international dark skies criteria. I'm not aware. I'm also not aware of anybody in the coalition, at least, actively working on this currently. So that could be a good opportunity. It might be a nice small project to bridge between a couple of action teams like natural areas and energy potentially. So yeah, it's a great way for you to get involved if you're interested. All right. There's a question about electric leaf blowers. Is anyone working on promoting electric leaf blowers instead of gas powered? Anybody know the answer to that? I'm not aware of specific action in the coalition to that effect. I can say from my work at OSU, it does come up as the perennial question, and we're sort of looking into options at this point, but no major strides that I'm aware of in the community. There's lots of energy questions. Love it if somebody else would jump on a couple of those, but in the meantime, I will address one of them, and that is, has anybody considered recommending that any new construction in Corvallis includes solar. I don't know, Cassandra, are you aware of any specific work on this?
I am not sure about, I know the solar access question, you can go to the city and require that your house continues to have solar access, but I think it's for solar electricity and not for gardens. But from what I've understood, it's a lengthy process and one person has done it once. So if anyone listening would like to go through that process, I think it would be very good exercise for the city. And I do know of someone who recently bought a house and now they don't have solar access and they're really bummed they didn't do that. So I think that would be a great thing to do. And as far as requiring it, I know there was just a major change across the state with energy code and building code, but I'm not up on that right now of what is required. The next step would probably just be solar ready. Carl Christensen, who's on the call, could maybe answer that.
Yeah, and I know in the Oregon Reach Code, which is a statewide, so for those who don't know, building codes are typically regulated at the state level, and they trickle down and are then administered by cities, counties, and other municipalities. And the state of Oregon recently, or a year or two ago, adopted a Reach Code that encourages things like that. I don't believe there are any requirements for solar on new construction within that Reach Code, but it could be the kind of thing that is rather than required, incentivized in various ways. So there may be some other ways of getting there besides a requirement. Okay, let me see. I think we, another question about solar, maybe Cassandra, you can help with this. Where do you go to seek solar access approval? I believe it's the city's community development department.
Yeah, I just call the city development department and then it already be under planning.
Yeah.
They'll route you. Keep us posted how that goes.
Yeah, that would be great. Again, between all of these questions really, or almost all of them, I think fall nicely into one of our action teams. So if anybody learns the questions to answer, or learns the answers to questions that we are not able to fully address today, it'd be great to loop those back to the coalition. And there's a couple of different ways to do that by contacting any of us or emailing info@sustainablecorvallis.org. That will reach one of us. So.
And Carl just did write that yes, solar ready is required in new construction for electrical, but it's only a conduit for future. So it's the bare minimum, but it's something.
Yeah, baby steps sometimes. There's a question about Research Stadium that I can address as part of my work at OSU. The question is, part of Research Stadium is currently under construction. Do we know if any of the construction materials are being reused, and will they be seeking LEED certification? And so, yes, we will. The major capital construction projects at OSU are required to submit and stick to a construction waste management plan. Our goals are typically to exceed 75% of construction demolition waste recovered. And so if you've been by the stadium demolition project recently, you can see in the last couple of weeks, at least, big piles of things sorted out, like metal is separated from concrete, is separated from wood, et cetera. We will be seeking the OSU standards are a little bit different than LEED, but very close to it. So they're called the OSU requirements for sustainable development and basically mirror LEED. So we will end up with a building that meets LEED silver standards or better. We tend towards gold for most of our projects. So it's early enough in the process that we don't know exactly where we'll land, but the short answer is yes, it will be built to the same standards. Annette, there's a question for the Natural Areas Action Team. The question is if that team is interested in collaborating to develop crowdsourced information on air temperature, humidity, and other environmental conditions, and as well as biodiversity before and after planting.
Interesting. Sounds like something that maybe Benton County Extension might be doing, or somebody who does citizen science projects. Yes, I think that would be an interesting activity to explore. can't be my decision. It has to be up to the team. So.
Great. Well, it sounds like a good thing to bring to that
Mhm.
action team in the future then. So.
Absolutely.
All right. I think we are through. Oh, here is one that I probably missed. Which action teams are applying for empowerment grants? And I think that might be referencing the city's neighborhood empowerment grants, if they're still so named. Does anybody know the answer to that?
You know, if my memory serves me correctly, I believe our transportation action team is the only one that's been involved with an empowerment grant. And I'm not aware of any teams that are currently looking at empowerment grants, but thanks for the reminder.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any more open questions that we need to address right now.
Okay. All righty.
So I think, Annette, do you want to close us out, or anything else you want to share?
I will close out by saying thank you, Brandon, for taking care of the Q&A, and thanks to all of our wonderful action team leaders who are here today telling us about your accomplishments of 2021. And thank you especially for those who attended, because without you, we wouldn't have a program. So anyway, we hope you have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.